Keith, I just want to ask you, how would you describe survival mode?
The survival is you feel like you're on edge every single minute. You feel like you have no other way out. You feel that all you have in front of you is the only thing you have. You have nothing else, and you've kind of like put in a box and you're stuck. And when you're stuck, you have the mind running left and right, and you can't make decisions, and literally the whole body is on fire. This is from
Hmm.
my experience and the way I can say it, survival mode.
I resonate with that heavily as well. So thank you. Welcome to Survival Mode Disrupted, the podcast for those who are done performing, done people pleasing, and done living life on autopilot. I'm your host, Letitia, the Survival Mode Disruptor, and this is where we create disruptive, unapologetic transformations for those who are ready to exit survival mode and reclaim their power. Every episode is your permission slip to burn the rule book, break the cycle, and finally build a life that feels like yours. So let's disrupt everything that's holding you back and start living life on your own terms. This is your trigger warning. This podcast is raw. It is real and it doesn't sugarcoat what it means to survive trauma, abuse, mental health battles, or even the aftermath of living in survival mode for too damn long. What you hear on Survival Mode Disrupted includes unfiltered stories, graphic details, and a vulnerable truth that may trigger some of the audience. Please prioritize your emotional safety. If something feels too heavy, pause, breathe, come back when you're ready, or not at all. Your healing is yours to honor. These episodes are based on lived experience, not therapy sessions or clinical advice. Listening does not replace mental health treatment or constitute a coach client relationship. If you're in crisis, please seek immediate help from a licensed professional or contact your local emergency services. This space is built with care, but it's also built for truth and built for disruption. Take what you need, leave the rest, and most of all, trust yourself. If this podcast speaks to your soul, you don't have to do this work alone. Feel free to join our free Facebook community for high achieving women ready to break cycles and heal out loud. Join us at Disrupting Survival Mode on Facebook, or grab the book that started this movement, Exiting Survival Mode, a raw step by step guide to help you identify, release, and rebuild from the survival patterns that have been keeping you stuck. Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of Survival Mode Disrupted. I am your host, Letitia, the Survival Mode Disruptor, and today we have Keith with us. So, Keith, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you. I'm really excited for today. My name's Keith Hager. At the moment, I'm currently working with helping men heal their mind, body in the way of practices to release trauma and to understand themselves on a deeper level. So, for me, understanding where I've come from, I've been in survival mode probably most of my life. If I take it back to kind of early childhood, there was a few moments in my childhood being abused by an adult figure, so much so where I'd get threatened in my bed with a knife to have my hand cut off, and consistently have criticism most of my childhood and into my teens where things changed. So this, as I got older, kind of led into kind of toxic relationships with with multiple women, which really kind of really messed me up a lot, to be honest. So it took me a long time to kind of decipher why I was in myself accepting these things and why I was constantly attracting this type of person. So I had to kind of do a lot of work to undo this and to see what was kind of underneath it all, you know? Because a lot of men don't really speak about the other way around. We hear a lot of abuse from women, but it still happens on a sense that men do have it. And for me, it was like, for instance, I can tell you one story, like my partner come home completely drunk, and I knew when she come home that it was a different person. And this diet, I mean, it was just, yeah, it was crazy. It was just full blown getting in my face, like screaming at me because I didn't want to listen to her. I was like, go to bed, you need to keep and calm, slamming doors, smashing things. And then when I had enough to walk out, then all the pushing, shoving, and then getting me into a headlock and all this crazy things and like blocking me from leaving the house. I was really messed up from that after that night, actually. I mean, I literally drove and I don't remember driving anywhere at all. I was so like out of my body. So that really affected me because it's like you're walking on eggshells all the time. You don't know what to say, you don't know what to do. And if you say something, it's like it's always my fault. I'm blamed for like just breathing. And this psychologically really messed me up because not only from my upbringing of being kind of seen as this, I don't know what, as this person who seems like is a bad person, to then be in a relationship and be kind of treated the same way. Like psychologically, I felt I was suicidal, actually. I was suicidal. There was times where I just drive to work and I thought if I just flip the car, it's just finished, you know? And this is all because my head was completely backwards. It was like the constant manipulation. If I say something, it was twisted back on me and I just didn't know where I stand. My whole nervous system was just like I was literally shake and I'd like lock up and clammy. My like even now talking about it a little bit, I can feel the clamminess come in. So imagine this when I'm in like in it and getting like just yeah, it was brutal. And I finally when I got out of that, and I healed a bit, and then I actually walked into another relationship, which wasn't it didn't it was all fun and games, but this one was even more manipulative. And I'm not the type of person who plays games. It's just I'm either really straight, it's like this or that. I don't understand the games. It's never something I've been understanding. And it was just like I would text and then it was just like or something I'd do something wrong and then it's like cold shoulder and then this massive long text of just ripping me to pieces or ripping my character to pieces and I'm like, am I really this person? And I started thinking, I'm like, I'm this person. I'm this bad person. I must be wrong. I must be abusive. Maybe I am the bad person. Maybe I am doing something wrong. It's or maybe I'm this. And even when I'd speak to a therapist, they were just kind of, I remember speaking to a therapist, and they're like, I could see in their face now, I think back, they're just like looking at me and like, you really believe you're this type of person? I was like, my whole character, every single thing my character be ripped about, or like the person I was, like if I didn't like a certain thing or I like this or like that, it's just like you should like that. I was like, I can be my own person. It's like, no, you should like this because I like that. I'm like, why? And then it's like, yeah, then it'd be like the hardest thing for me, and it still echoes in my head from that relationship, is being told I'm not a man, being told I need to man up, being told like I'm toxic, being told that my habits are wrong, like going to the gym and having a routine is wrong just because they don't like it. It, yeah, it took me months, probably years to kind of undo some of the strands there, and it still affects me now in my later life relationship. Like sometimes I'm just like, ugh. Luckily, I'm able to speak about it now and understand what's going on. And I can catch myself. If this angst or this nervousness or my pattern comes up, I'm just like, oh, okay. But it's taken me a hell of a lot of work and to get that. And even now, even talking about this, I can feel my body's like in my chest is like getting tight, you know? This nobody should live like this, male or female. You shouldn't have to be ripped to pieces just because of your own character. No one's perfect in any way, shape, or form. But to be kind of dictated to and yeah, and to be constantly the one has to be like trying to serve and like bow down to someone for something, you don't realize what's really happening. And it was literally most of the time it'd be neglect. It'd be like the cold shoulder, or like if I had done something right, if I had something, I get rewarded with like you could say sex, and I'm like, what's going on? I didn't really understand. Like they've done something shit to me, and I've like maybe ignored it or not reacted to it, and then I get rewarded for their bad behavior. I didn't understand the pattern. I didn't understand how to put it together. So it, and now, yeah, you can now I can kind of see things coming now, which has taken a bit of time. But yeah, it's been a long, long journey of dysregulation for me. And as I said, the last 3 or 4 years, things have really calmed down, so I understand how to kind of manage it now. But it still does raise its head. It's never fully healed. It's still a scar there. Sometimes the scab comes off a bit and the plaster goes back on. But yeah, so that's kind
Thanks.
of how things have gone.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I want to know what was that defining moment that made you realize that I really had to do something more in my healing process so that I can move beyond this.
It was a fact that I was having like the reoccurring thoughts, the kind of the intrusive thoughts. It was coming through, and and it was like I was battling my head. I'm like left, right, and I was like, I can't deal with this. It's like destroying me, and it's making me lose the character I am. Like my friends started disappearing because they couldn't handle being around me, which like really hurt me as well. But I understand from the fact like you can't be around someone who's dragging yourself down. I'm like getting dragged down, so I'm dragging other people down. This was a real critical moment, and I was like, I can't deal with this. I'm not who I am anymore. I've had enough. Like I had to change. The thing is, I had to change environment. I moved out of the country I was in. I sold everything. I completely left. When I left, I left. Like completely left the country, sold everything. There was no traces of me in that country. And I had to go. I went and traveled and like cleared my head, done a load of therapy every week, done a lot of breathing techniques to kind of get it out of my system, cried a lot, and started realizing there is people who cared for me out there. And I wasn't this person who I was semi-told I was. So it's like finding myself again. Yeah, it really was finding myself.
I can relate to that heavily. As I mentioned before we started recording, and the audience has probably heard this story 100 times, but I was in an abusive relationship from the age of 14. That relationship ended as a result of me being stabbed by my first husband. And I laughed thinking everything will magically fall into place. And I ended up in more abusive relationships while the physical wasn't the physical abuse wasn't part of those relationships because I didn't have the awareness of what was going on. My body was literally addicted to the chaos. I didn't know what it was like to be in a relationship, a healthy relationship. So I subconsciously sought chaos. And that's something I didn't recognize until I started healing. But I went from one abusive relationship and this one is less abusive than this one, so okay, I'll deal with this. And then the next one was less abusive than the first one or the second one. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm leveling up here. But actually, I was just really settling into that chaos that had become my norm, and my subconscious was literally seeking it out. And as someone, you've spoken that you've endured abuse from a very young age through school into adulthood. I can imagine that was a subconscious thing for you as well. We don't necessarily see it because you spoke about, hindsight is kind of like 2020 when you can
Mm.
then put the pieces together as you consciously start healing. But what were some of the patterns that you believe that you picked up outside of the suicidal ideations? What were some of the other patterns that you might have picked up in order to allow you to survive the abuse that you endured?
That's a good question. Some of the, I wouldn't say all of them are healthy patterns to survive. A lot of the time, to be honest, I would dissociate. and I've understood now there's three levels to me dissociating. Level one is kind of I'm just kind of away with the fairies, kind of daydreaming. Level two is where I'm like I feel like I'm behind, I'm in my body, but I'm looking behind. I have like, how do I explain it? It's like I'm in armor and I'm behind the armor. And level three is where I'm completely out of my body and I'm actually looking at myself. So in these times, whenever this abuse is how I realized I endured it, I just completely dissociated. I was like, and I'd realized this comes from my childhood. I like dissociated. I'm like, okay, so I realize now it's these certain points in my childhood where I dissociated, and this is where it starts from. So this is my coping mechanism, or was my coping mechanism, sorry, that I'd dissociate and then I'd just be locked up and you couldn't get anything out of me. Like you could literally like hammer me and then I'll just lock up and lock up. But I realized as the abusive relationship I was in, it kind of, at first it was all good, but it kept like, I don't think it was as bad. But I kept going into these relationships and the more it comes through with the manipulation, the physical abuse. The worst one is having your mind twisted upside down. I think that is way worse than someone hitting you or doing anything to you. Is having your mind turned inside out and you believing you're something you're not. That for me is has been the worst and the hardest thing to heal, really. Scars can heal, but trying to clear that out of your mind and these reoccurring thoughts will pop in every so often, which you don't want them to. Like, yeah.
A lot of people who have not experienced abuse struggle with understanding why we stay and how it gets to that point, right? And that point that you made, that emotional abuse that has us questioning our worth and our being, is what where it really starts, especially when the physical abuse is present. Most of us weren't hit first. We
Mm,
went through this cycle where our psyche was literally diminished by the person that we were with. So we get to a point where we view ourselves in the same vein that they paint us, which then leaves us feeling like we don't have a lot of control, which is why they're able to manipulate, which is why the abuse goes on for a long period of time, which is also why it's often difficult for us to leave because our brain has one function is that is to keep us safe. But if we are in environments where safety is not an option yet, that is where we stay, our brain starts to believe that this is normal.
mm,
So this is that chaos that we experience. It's normal. So when we enter into other situations, our brain subconsciously is looking for those cues that have become normal to us over time. And particularly when, I always talk about my childhood. My parents were present. I didn't have any physical abuse, but there was a lot of emotional abandonment for me. My parents
mm,
did not protect me in the way that I needed to protect. I needed to be protected. And as a result, that left me open and vulnerable to people who can come in and paint this picture that they're protecting me. So it looks like they're removing me a from what I had considered unsafe. But they were literally putting me in the same environment, but they were doing it in a way where they had control. And again, we don't often hear male survival stories, right? We know that men get abused, but oftentimes it's like, wow, and you spoke about this, you being, yeah,
mm.
man. Why would you, how could this happen? Can you speak to the emotional toll that it took on you? Like you spoke about the suicidal ideation, but before it got to that point, where were you sitting in your self-worth? Like, how did this show up for you? Because most times you spoke about the disassociation, the men don't process their emotions the way that we do.
Mm.
What did that look like for you? Been through that from an emotional standpoint.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And before I go into that, the idea, as you mentioned, it really resonates with that isolation. It's like they're cutting off all your limbs and then they're placing you in there where you can't walk away. This is something I totally had, this like twisting that my friends who are good for me and there for me and love and care for me and trying to protect me, they're all bad. So I really, this is something I had also. It's like cutting off all everything. As for the the way I was thinking, I felt I was worthless. I felt I was absolutely worthless. I felt like I wasn't good enough. It didn't matter what I did. If I tried to do every single thing to make this person happy, it got literally into that point where I'm like groveling. It's like they're like the king or queen and you're groveling like a peasant on the floor. And I literally felt like I was worthless. I felt like I was literally no one cared for me, that I literally, my self-worth and self-love was literally zilch. I like things just went out the window. Stuff I loved, going to the gym, looking after myself, eating healthy, all stopped. I started losing all my weight. I lost all my weight. I was like even skinnier than I am now. It's like I was drained. I had no energy. I was literally depressed. I was literally depressed. I was depressed. Sometimes I just burst into tears for no reason, and I didn't understand fully why. And I was like, what's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Why does this person, I think when you talk about it, it's like when I was thinking, it's like, you're thinking this person loves me. You're like, why doesn't this person love me? But it's not, they don't, nothing to do with love. It's just like they're sapping you, they're like a vampire. They're taking all your energy for them to like be on this pedestal and then make you look like you're like a nut job. So like they're having this smearing campaign that there's something wrong with me, and then they're trying to save me. And so it ends up like I think I'm like mentally insane. And this is the battle I had. It's like there must be something wrong with me. And I'm starting like, well, obviously, then when I'm completely a mess, my body started having all these weird things happen, like common stomach pains, like illnesses coming out of the middle of nowhere. Yeah, I think I went grayer a lot quicker as well. So that one wasn't the most fun, put it that way. But yeah, so there was a lot. I think the toll on the mental health and my it literally come out into my body.
Hmm.
Like I was coming out with injuries, like my back was going out, my calves were going out, and if you understand the emotional aspect of that, the back is anger, and the calf is the foot and ankle's direction in life. I didn't have, I feel like I was just in a box, and there was no life for me, no way out. And like as I said, it's like a trauma bond. It's like you're consistently in that chaos, but you know it's not right, but you don't understand anything else at the moment. It's like you've been reprogrammed like in a computer to serve.
Hmm. Whenever I talk about accident survival mode, I talk about it happens in three phases. The first is self-awareness. We often can't change what we can't see. The second is reprogramming, being able to challenge the narratives, the beliefs, the conditionings that kept us stuck. And then the third is a reinvention. And what you spoke to, that reprogramming, we really do have to change the way that we look at ourselves, right? And it usually starts with that key thing, building on our self-love and our self-worth. But no one ever teaches us how to do that. Like we have to go therapy and all of this stuff. And I think if we had the tools from young, I think it would change the way that we operate oftentimes. It would maybe not stop people from being abused, but it may reduce the incidents that it happens, because a lot of times the reason why we end up in these places is because we were broken from the beginning, and a lot of that brokenness comes from childhood. And it may not have been that we were abused, it may have been, emotional neglect. I had a lot of trauma within the school system as well, that forged the way that I looked at myself, which then allowed me to be in spaces that reduced me without me second guessing it. Now, you mentioned the isolation with your friends. What was it like to finally admit what you were going through? Because I know for me, the guilt and shame held precedence for a very long time. I never wanted to really admit to anybody what I was dealing with. And what was interesting that at the height of my abuse, I was working in law enforcement and I couldn't admit to get help. And it wasn't until I was stabbed that it, it made sense to do something about it. Can you speak to what that looked like for you to, first of all, admit that this is what you went through, and who did you tell first, and were they supportive? Because perhaps they saw the the dynamics in your relationships.
Yeah, forgiveness of myself was really hard, actually. Like really hard to actually admit that I abandoned my own self and my own beliefs, my own worth, and that everything I stood for, that was one of the hardest things in my own self that I had to admit. And I felt so much shame and so much guilt in myself. That took, and at times it still does come back. It rears its head like, why? And then I get angry at myself or get frustrated, and but I can't hold that against, and I have to let that past go with that I'm not that same person as I was. And it can be difficult at times to let that go. Reaching out to people, it took me a while, especially with the first abusive one. I think one of my friends fully understood something was going on was the fact like when that night I ended up getting locked in a headlock and everything. I actually drove to my friend's house, and lucky I had a key because he was out with his parents, friends. He come back, so I messaged him. He saw me, and I was I was shit. My whole body was shaking, and I was like, but I couldn't even talk. And he just looked at me. He's like, "What the hell has happened?" And he literally had to literally carry me to the bed, put me into bed, and yeah, that was the first like real thing. Is like something seriously up here. And I think over that at that point is slowly when I started opening up, but it took at that full blown as like I feel in my body now. I'm like shaking now, just reliving that moment. So yeah, because of him, it's actually he was the one who helped me a lot. Unfortunately, he could only do so much though, because when you're in that state and with that thing, you're in that, you go back. It's like they're reeling you back in, and you're like, go there, like, no, I'm leaving. I'm getting my stuff. I'm out. But you collapse. It's like got there, like, but luckily I managed to get away in the end. But I think after that, I realized that I had a really good friend, which I never maybe fully was conscious about overall my years of through the abuse. I always had people there, but I didn't fully comprehend it. Even when I was younger, I didn't comprehend it. It's only when I got older, and I speak to some of my friends now from they were there, but I didn't see that in myself, and I wasn't able to reach out. And I think it's about being conscious and being aware that you do have friends and there is really good people there for you. It's just I had to allow myself to let them in, but I also had to allow myself to be conscious enough to realize that I do have people that care about me. And that took a lot as well to realize that people do care about me. I'm not on my own. There is people out there, and it is possible to ask for help, even if they just sit there and listen. They may not be able to do everything, but if they can sit there and listen and even just give you a hug, like the dude just like my friend then just gave me a hug, like it was, I think that point was one of the turning points, actually realizing I actually have good people around me. And even
Hmm.
now, it's like, I feel like it's like I can tear up now thinking about it. Actually, I am slightly.
Having a safe space is so important, and that's one of the reasons why I pride myself in these conversations. So I've had a lot of people on this show that have told their story for the very first time. And I often get the feedback that I create a safe space, but I think I will say that I do that because I that was what I needed. I never really had that safe space. I Because of the dynamics, especially of my first relationship, my community, my village, they essentially blamed me. It was, you knew that you shouldn't have been with this older man in the first place. Like, you created this scenario. And oftentimes that's how we are viewed as victims, right? Like, you put yourself in that circumstance, which then has us carrying that weight. And you spoke to the self-forgiveness. I am a person that does not believe in offering forgiveness to others before I give it to myself. And we live in a
Mm,
society that pushes us to forgive the perpetrator when there isn't this discussion around self-forgiveness and how hard it is and how long it can take, because we earn everything when we are in these abusive relationships, right? It was my fault. I made that decision. It was my fault. And oftentimes it comes as part of that emotional abuse that we experience. But to be able
mm,
to get to a point where you truly forgive yourself, because that level of forgiveness requires radical ownership. And oftentimes, as victims, we don't have ownership of anything, right? We just, where is
mm.
me? The world's against us. But the first step in self-forgiveness is the acceptance that we played a role, even if it was insignificant, right? Like I've been arrested before, and I always say, I had nothing to do with the stealing of whatever happened. I was not the person that stole. I just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. My healing allowed me to see that my decision to go to this place, that's mine to earn. That's
Yeah.
me taking accountability instead of passing the buck. No, I wasn't involved in criminal activity at all, but I have to earn the fact that my decision got me there. And in earning that fact, then I also take accountability for other aspects of my life. But a lot of that self forgiveness is avoided or um, skirted around because oftentimes when we're sitting in victimhood, we don't take accountability, we don't take radical responsibility or ownership of our lives. And that is the beauty of healing. And I also think that's one of the reasons why self forgiveness should be higher on the healing agenda than the forgiveness of others.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying there. A lot of people say you should forgive them and then forget. I'm like, I need to forgive myself for getting myself into that position for being unconscious. Unconscious at if I when I look back now, I saw the red flags. I chose in my own unconscious thing to ignore it. If I
Mhm.
look at them, they were right there in my face. I'm like, and I chose to ignore these red flags. So I had to own that and accept, like, why did I accept that? I shouldn't have accepted it because these are things what have come through my life and I've accepted it. So I've had to look at myself a lot in that sense and like, this is why I accepted that. Why did I accept that? And the boundaries, why did I let the boundary, why will I let my boundaries slip? Why was I not standing my ground? Why was I not speaking my truth? Why was I talking about the bad behavior? Why was I not why did I just not walk away when all these things like started? Because it doesn't start, as you say, it starts off slowly. It's all fun and games at the start, and then the mask starts slipping, and then things roll. But at the end of the day, it's like I still accepted these things. So I take the responsibility that I accepted it, and I take responsibility that I also was in a bit of a mess in that relationship as well. It takes two to
Mhm.
tango, and it's also seeing that this person wasn't good for me. And there's a fine line between now and understanding from being more conscious and more aware that out in the world, I've now noticed that these people I meet, this person's not so good for me, so I don't go around them. And I can feel the difference in the energy now. It's taken me a lot of, you could say, blood, sweat, and tears to get to this, though. It's not been an easy road because I have blamed myself for physically everything what happened, especially after relationships. I was like, oh, it was me, they're all good, like it was my fault, it's my fault. It's no. It's like I'm reacting on someone's bad behavior and then I'm not holding my own self accountable by i.e. walking away or speaking my truth and just had enough of it. Yeah, I think self-forgiveness comes first. Like it took me a long time to be able to even be even like, even if I saw the person out in the street or the car drove past, I'd have like fear like come up. And now I'm just like, you know what? Do I fully forgive you? I'm like, some days maybe, some days not, depending on how I'm feeling inside. But obviously, on the sense, I do I forgive myself for putting myself in that situation? Yeah. And will I ever? And now I'm more conscious because I've worked on myself a lot. Will I ever go back into city, or do even if I get the red flags, I feel it in my body? I'm like, I'm not being around here, so I'm gonna leave now. Or I'm more conscious, like, and I'm a bit aware if I can feel the feelings in my body. If there's something's happening, then I'm like, okay, I have to figure out why it's happening. And then if I'm starting to feel the red alert, then I'm like, all right, I'm out.
Hmm.
Wherever it may be, male, female, or just even groups, I'm like, I'm out. So it's more about listening to myself now, and that's taken a lot of time to get
Hmm.
to the point, this point.
And I just want to say there's a fine line between blame and responsibility, right? And oftentimes when we are unhealed, we blame ourselves. But once we get on that healing journey, it turns into just taking responsibility. You can hear, I don't know if anybody else caught it, but I definitely did. I heard the difference in the way you talked about how you spoke to yourself between the blame and the responsibility, right? In the blame, it was like, why did I deal with this? And this was my fault, and da 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 da. The responsibility was, why did I allow this for so long? And it seems like it's the same to an untrained ear, but the responsibility by asking that question, you now give yourself the opportunity to uncover the patterns that would have kept you in those repetitive relationships. Whereas the blame is like, this is my fault. That's a full stop, a
Mm,
complete sentence. Our brain is has an inability to ignore a question. And if we ask the right questions, we essentially can change our lives. And in hearing you say, what part did I play here? Gives you the opportunity to make different choices rather than just placing blame on yourself for the entire circumstance. So I think that was just something key to bring up. Keith, to someone that might be listening to this that is in an abusive situation and perhaps feels like because I am a man, I don't really have resources or a way out of this. What would you say to them?
very good, very, very, very good question. If I was thinking back to in that position for me and giving them out that is having what I understand now is having a close knit of male, healthy male friends. I have to stress that because there's a fine line between the two. And having people that will care and they will like, I didn't realize that. Realizing that if I send a text, if sending text, if you're another man and I got a text from there and they said they needed me, it's that person being conscious enough to be like, I'm here to listen for you. And this is, it's if you are in an abusive relationship and you are a man, just because you're a man, it doesn't make you weak. Just because you're not showing your emotions, you don't have to hide behind a wall. I've been there, I've done that, and it ruined me. It's actually now the more I speak about and connect with actually other men, that I feel more empowered and I'm able to speak my story. It's not about putting up with things because, oh, it's what we men are meant to do. No, no one's meant to put, male, female, not meant to put up with being hit, screamed at, and all these other things. It's about, for me, if I was in that position again, which fingers crossed I never will be, and I make sure I never will be, but it's about, for me, it's about the men understanding that they aren't worthless, that they are something, that they are not less of a man if they speak their emotions, that they are cared for. There is people out there who are cared for, and there is people who will help you. And it's about taking that step, and you're not going to be weak for saying, like, I need help, or something is happening, please help me. It's, if I could have said that, things would have been different. And this is probably one of the most powerful things. It's about having that confidence and bravery to literally walk out and say, I'm messed up, I need some help, I do not know what's going on, but this doesn't seem right.
Absolutely. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Keith. How can we connect with you online?
Yes, I'm on Instagram on Holistic Brotherhood is my account, and that's on Facebook as well, and TikTok, all the same, Holistic Brotherhood, but spelled with a W. So you can connect with me there, and my door is always open to anybody out there who's been in some situation they want to talk. Please, my door is open. Please message me. I'm here to help.
And how are you currently working with me? And I know that you mentioned like a group. What does that
Yeah,
look
so
like?
I have a men's support group on WhatsApp. So I have a closed community there where it's guys from all over the world, and we talk about our struggles and we guide each other. We don't offer advice, but we offer our own experiences. So I have that there, which again brings being able to have men actually express and speak their emotions in a safe place, basically. As you spoke about before, it's about having a safe space. And also I work a lot with men about basically about their own mental capacity. So as we know, as things get blocked in the body, the energy gets blocked or the fear we hold, things tighten up. So I work with different modalities about helping to release that through guided meditations, breath work, movement, working into nutrition as well. It's the whole mind, body, spirit. I want to look at it as a body as a whole.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time on Survival Made Disrupted, Keith. But one key takeaway for the audience to action.
One key takeaway for the audience, action, speak up. You're not alone.
Hmm. That's so true. Speak up, you are not alone. Keith, thank you for your time. And audience, thank you for catching another episode of Survival Mode Disrupted. I just want to remind you, you were not built to break, but you damn sure were not built to just survive, disrupt the cycle, reclaim your life, and thrive on your own terms. And I will see you next week. Once again, thank you for joining another episode of Survival Mode Disrupted, hosted by the Survival Mode Disruptor, Letitia. You didn't land here by accident. This conversation, it probably cracked something open on purpose. Because survival mode isn't just a phase, it's a pattern, an identity, a prison masked as strength. But here's the truth. You're not broken, you're just unfinished. So if something stirred in you today, don't ignore it, don't numb it, move with it. And I want to once again invite you to join Disrupting Survival Mode, the Facebook community where healing is loud and messy and real. I also want to invite you to buy my book, The Survival Mode Action Plan, because your breakthrough deserves a blueprint. And if you felt seen today, be sure to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, and drop a review. That's how I amplify the voices that need to be heard. And remember, this isn't about fixing yourself. This is about finding yourself again beneath the rubble. Until next time, choose ease, choose power, choose you. This is Survival Made Disrupted. Let's keep shaking shit up.